Hi parents and welcome. I am Kathy and I'm glad you're joining us today. I'd like to coach on a topic of days, D-A-Y-S, yes, days. How are they for you? How are the days with your children? So I'd like for you to think for a minute about how you define a good day. How do you define it? Let's look at it as possibly a day when your child is obeying, living in his strengths. She's obeying, and you see she's improving. That's probably a pretty good day for a parent. Well, let's think a minute about bad days. Do bad days as a parent look like this? Your child is not choosing well. She's not living in her strengths. She is disobeying, and he's dishonoring. Those probably make for a pretty bad day. Well, how do you handle each kind of day? Well, let's look at that. First of all, on good days. How do you note something when, for example, when you're reading, how do you note that something is important? What do? I circle it. In fact, one of the brain researchers that I follow says it's really best to circle instead of just underline. It adds another dimension to your brain and the thinking process. So I circle things, but you can circle, you underline, some of you may put a star by it, you may fold down the page, but in other words, when you're reading something of importance, you note it in some way. Well, that's what we want to do on good days for our children. We want to note it. We want to notice it. We can call it bookmarking. Put a pin in it. Acknowledge it in some way. I had one parent say that she called it butterfly days. They had butterfly days. Well, the idea is to acknowledge the day to your child. See, kids don't always recognize their own growth. And often they don't hear good things or good reports. So it's important to point that out, acknowledge the behavior. And here's what I suggest you do. Connect it to a value. So I'll say that again. Acknowledge the behavior and connect it to a value. It may sound something like this. I saw how nicely you were treating your brother today. You know, you showed real compassion to him. Do you see how the behavior was doing something nice? You could even specify what that was and then connect it to a value. That was really compassionate. Or it was great to see you share with your friend, you know, that was hard to do at the time, but you acted so selflessly. Do you see, you're indicating there was a behavior, and here's the trait that I noticed. So that they're consistently hearing this pattern of good behavior looks this way, and that's what I want to acknowledge. Well, we want to emphasize then the positive on those good days. Here's another benefit from that. When you do so, it will give you a place to return, to point back to reference when there is a bad day. And so you can go back to the bookmark, the note that you've made. So it might sound like this. I know that you're having a hard time today being considerate. Remember when you were so kind to your brother yesterday? Could you try to do the same thing today? Remember how that felt and how that worked? Do you see? You're pinpointing the good day. And if you haven't acknowledged it, then you haven't made it a point. And so you want to do that on the good days so you can point back on the not so good days. Well, on those bad days, you as a parent may need to change your whole tactic. Something may have disrupted the pattern of behavior, and you might need to change the way you're doing. You might need to increase your disciplinary approach. You probably are going to be a little frustrated because things aren't going well, but remember to be firm and assertive, but not harsh and aggressive. That's the distinction. Be firm and assertive, but not harsh and aggressive. Well, bad days, if you handle them well, will usually be followed by a good day. And so now you see you're in that cycle. And so you want the good days to be more prominent than the bad. So you want to reinforce the good days, reinforce them, and look for ways that children can have a good day. In other words, set them up for success. Remember to help them, lead them to the path to be a success. Now that means doing some things on your part. First of all, have reasonable expectations. Give them clear instructions. Ask them to repeat those instructions, and then ask them to report back to you when they are finished with the task. I say you could sum that up in 3 words that begin with R. Remind them, repeat, and report. So remind them of what they are to do, ask the child to repeat, and then ask the child to report back to you. Now this works whether you have a child who's probably about 3 or 18. It works on any age. It might really work for your spouse too. Be careful, but it's a strategy, in other words, that's good for any age group. A lot of it depends on how you present the information. Remember, you keep a positive attitude. And by that, I don't mean you have an attitude. You have a positive attitude. You know what I mean. I encourage you now to start each day with prayer. Because when you do that, and when you ask God to guide all of your thoughts, your emotions, your words, and your actions, you are setting your mind in the direction you want to go, and you're asking God to guide you and help you. And that is sort of setting your sail for the day to go in the right direction. You're setting yourself up to have a good day. Teach your children to do that practice also, to ask God to help their thoughts, their emotions, and their words and their actions, those 4 things that encompasses everything about us, mind, body, spirit, soul, all of that, to give them over to God for direction. Finally, remind your kids how good days look. 2 words, obey and honor. Remind them, obey and honor. Remind them also that their choices will determine how the day goes. You see, that's true for all of us. We choose how to respond no matter what circumstance we're facing, no matter what stimuli is coming at us. We choose how we respond. I am responsible for my response. So how can we ask our kids to choose well if we don't? Now go out and choose well. God bless.